Well, we're going to have a little bit of fun today because I want to show you an actual example of Trump Derangement Syndrome from a major New Zealand media outlet. Now, Trump Derangement Syndrome, or TDS, is a mental condition in which a person has been driven effectively insane due to their dislike of Donald Trump, to the point at which they will abandon all logic and reason. Now, that's the definition from CNN, who I always believe. Now, in the case of the media, the definition would be TDS, a mental condition in which the media outlet has been driven effectively insane due to their dislike of Donald Trump, to the point at which they will abandon all professionalism and journalism excellence. And I'm going to show you today a compilation of media clips from Stuff's ThreeNews at 6 p.m. just over the last couple of months. But before I do that, let me just remind you of a few examples from last year during the presidential election. Now, the headlines all screamed at the time, you might remember this: Donald Trump suggests that Liz Cheney should have guns trained on her face. Shocking comments if that's what he meant, except he didn't say that. Here's what he actually said.
She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face. You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy. But she's a stupid person.
Yeah, so easy to put people on the front line when you're sitting in your plush, secured office in crime-ridden Washington, D.C. Very easy to do that. That's the point. But let's watch 3News' coverage. And note especially when they cut the coverage of what he says.
And then he suggested his old Republican nemesis Liz Cheney should be put in the line of fire.
She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face.
Oh, that was convenient. In this next example, the 3News newsreader is absolutely dripping with unprofessionalism, sarcasm, and condescension as she slams Trump for his rhetoric. Oh, but then she congratulates Kamala Harris for returning as good as she got. This is probably one of the most unprofessional introductions I've heard on a news bulletin. Well, up until recently anyway. Check this one.
No mai haere mai ma loilele. Welcome to 3News. Donald Trump's rhetoric ramped up another notch today, if that were possible. He described his Democratic opponent, Kamala Harris, as a weak and foolish woman and said voters should not put her in the White House because she will, and I will quote, get overwhelmed, melt down, and millions of people will die, perhaps. At least he added the perhaps. And for her part, Kamala Harris gave as good as she got. Leighton Hakel reports.
Oh, that's lovely. She gave as good as she got. And then there was that town hall event. Do you remember that, when Trump showed some humanity by halting a political rally so that sick people could be tended to? Twice. And then they turned it into a fun event of music and signing Trump caps. How dare he show compassion?
Just 3 weeks to go until the US election, Donald Trump's made an unusual move on the campaign trail, turning a rally in Pennsylvania into a 40-minute dance routine. It prompted his Democratic rival Kamala Harris to ask on social media if he was okay. ITV's Dan Rivers has more.
Yeah, and then here was 3News the night after Trump won the presidency. And the funny part when you watch this is, remember who actually won the election, but note who's being painted better in this report.
Plenty of fireworks there today as Trump has blazed his way to an early lead. Andrea Vance reports from the US.
Two complete opposites in their politics, how they campaign and how they throw a viewing party to mark the end of polling day. Donald Trump with this muted affair at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Supporters donning Trump's signature red hats. Trump himself reported to be watching nearby with his closest friends and family, and Elon Musk. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., a very different vibe. Kamala Harris holding a watch party at Howard University, where she once studied, with performances on stage and an energized audience.
Energized audience. Okay, and then the following night, which also needed fact-checking, because you'll note that they deliberately leave out the word illegal before the word immigrant. Deliberately.
Part of Trump's success came from boosting his support among particular demographic groups that traditionally lent Democrat. Take, for example, the Latin vote. Now, despite his anti-immigrant rhetoric, Trump's support amongst Hispanic voters went up since the last election. Now, you can see there in the red columns, it went up from 35% to 42%.
Yeah, and then there was that Musk Nazi salute, which wasn't actually a Nazi salute.
Inside, ahead of his arrival, the crowd was hyped, and so was Trump's right-hand man, Elon Musk, with a salute to the crowd, which is raising eyebrows across the world.
My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you.
Yeah, now, but the interesting thing was that when Tim Waltz did it, it wasn't reported. It looks like a Nazi salute, doesn't it? Anyway. Look, I thought this just might be a blip at the end of last year as the news media eventually returned to professionalism. But I may have been wrong. Here's a short montage of stories by 3News over the 6 p.m. news over the last couple of months on Trump. As you watch this, watch for the sarcasm, the loaded statements, the physical gestures, the tone they use, the lack of professionalism. I haven't observed this type of presentation, haven't observed it with any other political leader. They never did it with Biden, and they would never have done it with Kamala Harris. Have a watch.
Donald Trump has celebrated the 100th day of his second term doing what he loves best, railing against his enemies, making false claims about the 2020 election and boasting about his perceived achievements.
Global stock markets have been on another rollercoaster ride after President Trump's backtrack on tariffs. President Trump continues to shift his tariff policies by the minute, while the rest of the world braces for the fallout.
At a campaign-style rally in Michigan, Trump told the crowd his was the best start to a presidency in history.
Well, just a day after saying that laptops, phones and other electronics wouldn't be hit by tariffs, the Trump administration is now saying those exemptions will be short-lived.
She was there on behalf of the EU, as President Trump is known to be a fan. Everybody loves her, he said today.
Donald Trump won't admit it, but he appears to have blinked first in his trade war with China.
Donald Trump has praised Mark Carney's win in Canada's election, calling it one of the greatest political comebacks ever, perhaps even bigger than his own. Of course, the US president also took credit for it, acknowledging the huge voter backlash to his calls for Canada to become the 51st state.
Fresh from celebrating his first 100 days in office, the best start to a presidency in history apparently, you may have thought news of a shrinking economy might dampen Donald Trump's spirits, but no, turns out it was all Biden's fault. And it's not just Trump saying that, his cabinet agreed wholeheartedly as they took turns lavishing praise on the boss and thanking him for his leadership.
Apparently, Melania Trump did write her self-titled memoir, Melania, but although the newly released audiobook sounds a lot like the US First Lady, it's not her reading it.
Elon Musk has lashed out at US President Donald Trump's sweeping tax and spending legislation changes, calling them pork-filled and a disgusting abomination. In a 75-minute phone conversation, Donald Trump said Vladimir Putin told him. Trump, meanwhile, spent his 79th birthday watching a long-desired military parade, a display of power with a price tag of more than $70 million. I may do it, I may not do it. Nobody knows what I'm going to do, he told reporters. Trump says Newsom should be arrested, although he can't say for what crime. Keeping your enemy guessing is a tried and tested battlefield tactic, but President Trump appears to be taking it to new levels. In fact, the only bomb dropped today was President Trump's unprecedented F-bomb. The pledge, which Donald Trump has been demanding since his first term in office, capped off a summit focused on appeasing and praising the US president. NATO's boss led the way, going so far as to call Trump daddy over his handling of the Israel-Iran war. A marathon voting session on amendments to President Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill is underway. Well, 2 wins for Donald Trump today, both potentially huge, to use one of his favourite words. US President Donald Trump filed a $16.7 billion lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal and media mogul Rupert Murdoch, the Epstein files. It's the one controversy Donald Trump just can't seem to shake. President Trump arrived in his late mother's homeland of Scotland overnight and plunged straight into controversy. Well, there are few things Donald Trump enjoys more than publicly wading into the culture wars. Today, he used his Truth Social platform to lambast a supposedly woke ad by Jaguar Land Rover.
It was woke.
Trump described the summit as a feel-out meeting. It'll be good, he said, before adding, but it might be bad.
It's caused just the kind of storm in a teacup he relishes.
Whew. Yep. Well, hopefully one day the Trump Derangement Syndrome will wear off and we can get back to some professionalism and balance on our 6 p.m. bulletin. I'm just a bit worried that it might not happen until January 2029, when Trump leaves the White House for good. And the thought of having to wait until 2029 will trigger the media, won't it?